your local hope dealer.
Inspiration and dedication. I came a long way from sleeping in them pages. I got my life back, I feel amazing. Life's a book, don't get stuck on sad pages. Rainy days with no money. Hard work lead to days that are sunny. Looking back, it was all needed. The problems, the pain, the trauma, the grieving. You are now tuned in to the prisoner to painter. Prisoner to painter. Hard work, dedication. Rainy days, inspiration. Prisoner to painter.
And now, a word from your local hope dealer.
Yeah.
No matter how many millions of views, like in Jackson, thousands is a big deal.
Oh yeah. And then the connection of people, like I really didn't realize what I was doing. So when I lost my job, I reached out to a realtor I had on, hey, if you got any side work. She's kept me busy for the past month. I mean, like I made more money unemployed than I have even employed. So that makes me think maybe I'm going in the right direction of not going to work a 9 to 5. I mean, clearly you guys got that here. And now you're doing your own. But I know you work more on your own anyways, but I'm a worker. So it doesn't bother me. That, I'm excited.
So we are live, but you hear the tornado sirens in the back. So we're just kind of hanging out for a second.
No, and we're still finding ourselves, like in the terms of, I say, welcome to the Prisoner of Painter podcast. And I say my name, and some things stuck, other things happen. So, we're still learning that. But are we good besides the tornado siren?
It won't last too long.
Yeah, no, they started at noon, it's 12:03.
Well,
they do what, 4 or 5 minutes?
Well, and that's why we do it live too, is for stuff like this. The cat comes down, jumps on the table, gets annoying. Like I do it on purpose because nothing's perfect. Like the news with all the powder and they look good and it's like that's not real, man. That's not real. Stuff like that happens. Dude, my first 3 episodes, some dude came and knocked on the door to shovel my driveway. I'm like, this is perfect though. It was perfect. Like I'm like, that's what I'm trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
So, awesome. Well, welcome to the Prisoner to Painter podcast. I'm Nathan McDermott.
And I'm Katie McDermott.
And today we have Mr. Booher and Devin. Awesome.
Yes,
well, thank you guys for coming on, man.
Craig's fine.
Craig's fine.
You have to be that.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. Well, most people who know you would probably know Craig and Devin anyways. Just a formality, I guess, for the beginning of it. But and lately I've been starting with I swayed away from my little book because I've been writing down all my questions, and I think it puts the podcast into a square, and I'm trying not to do that. So, I just want people to know stuff that they wouldn't normally know about you. Like they know you as a teacher, I'm sure, like people around here, and now you started Booher's. Maybe a student, and his son-in-law. So so I'm trying to break that away and then know you for who you are. Besides, like the title. So, if you don't mind, I would like to start.
Where your story collectively.
Yeah.
What do you want? You want to take?
Well, my daughter, I would say.
Okay.
I probably would have never known Devin if it weren't for my daughter meeting him.
I guess from like where I was at, because it was probably almost more on me. I mean, I met Anna at my last job. We worked at a restaurant together, and we hit it off, and we were together for a couple of years, and then the whole time, Craig wanted to start a restaurant, and he had a little. It was out of his garage kind of type thing. He's selling pies, and cool. Just because of the laws, you can't start a restaurant, but you can make pies and sell it in your house if you have a certain license. Like cottage license.
Yeah.
So he's kind of doing that thing, and we're together, and finally, it's starting to get to a point where he might actually have a restaurant. And the timing was kind of interesting too, because Anna and I got engaged. And in a couple months before the restaurant opened, that was in January. October, my father passed away. So it was like right before, and I took some time off because I was trying to figure out all these little things, when somebody passed, I got to sort stuff out. Yeah. And that's kind of how we converged. It was like at this, it was a weird time for me, and we knew each other. How we'd gone to church, the same church for a while, but we didn't really know each other. I feel like kind of when we opened up is when we really got to become family in a way. So it was a cool time. It was a tough time opening a restaurant and also becoming family on, the Autobahn. It was like as fast as you could go. We were close. So there was a lot of, still, even I spend more time with Craig than with Anna, when you add up the hours. So, that's how we got hooked up, just opening the restaurant. It was maybe about a month or so. That was maybe December is when I really started like cracking down on like, okay, let's paint these walls, this and that. So
This is the real way this is gonna happen.
Yeah. So me and Anna have been together now for I think like about 7 years. So I guess I've known Craig about that long, but it's really since the restaurant opened is when we started like being like
Yeah. Hey, no, that's super cool, man. I actually didn't expect this, so I didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, maybe business partners, which is whatever, but I was like, probably son and dad or something.
Yeah.
This is a different dynamic, so that's it's cool, and that's why I'm glad I quit writing down questions, because I put stuff in a box, and I'm like, this is not something you can put in a box. It's awesome, really cool. One thing he said that I really like. Do you guys remember Tommy Dogs from Jackson? So
yeah.
So the dude the same way, just started off with a little cart, and then he never got to make a restaurant. He passed.
I thought he did.
Well, I think he did like 6 months, but then he passed, and the kids just whatever.
Yeah.
But that's not your story. But it's cool that you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Yeah, I was inspired by that actually, and those kinds of stories. I loved watching Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives.
Yeah.
When I grew up in the Detroit area, and I would always go to little places like that. And when we go on vacation as a family, we'd never go to a chain restaurant. We'd always go to little places. So I just always liked food and liked that kind of thing. I always said we're like a Chinese immigrant family, because like at least in Detroit, I don't know about here, but you go to a Chinese restaurant and they got their 2-year-old kid running around the restaurant, and grandma's in the back. I've always thought that was a good way to kind of do something entrepreneurial. Keeps the family together and stuff. So
it makes you feel welcome walking in. The one time we ate at your place, I felt welcome.
Mhm.
Like as soon as I walked in the door, I felt welcome. So and that's hard for some restaurants. It's hard to accomplish, because you sit here or please seat yourself. I mean, you got seat yourself, but it's so open and inviting. It's not like you walk into a little hallway and please seat yourself, and then somebody will be with you in 5 minutes. You guys got to go out. So awesome. Well, I guess I think started childhood. And thank you guys for learning. I think learning with me. I guess if I can ask you first, you said you started or you lived in Detroit. What was your childhood like? Good, bad, and different?
I was a preacher's kid, so my dad was a minister. Yeah. So it was a really wild life, being a life of a minister's kid. You're kind of in a bubble. Looking back at it, it sounds dumb, but in a way it's like being a minor celebrity, in the sense that when you're in a church in that little community, everyone knows you, everyone's watching you. If someone else's kid messes up, whatever, but if you mess up, that's John Booher's kid, and he'll hear about it, that kind of thing. So it kind of creates you have a very much of a public life as a kid. I never really thought about it. When you realize whatever your life story is, the things you grow up with, you don't know any different. So it seems normal. So for me, it really affected how I ended up becoming as an adult. You're running a restaurant, you're in a very public position. You be very aware of, as a teacher, very public. Everywhere you go in town, you go to Myers, you're seeing people. It's not uncomfortable for me, because I've literally lived that my whole life. So it seems very normal. So I realize it, in many ways, I think it's a blessing. Some people wouldn't like it, but I enjoyed it. Parents, we were quite poor when I was little. And then as we got older, we moved to Michigan, and that church became very successful. So junior high, high school years, doing pretty well. And so from a food standpoint, because I keep it a certain vein here, what does this mean? I've had everything. My mom was a home ec teacher. She made homemade food all the time. She makes these. She's like 82 years old. She still makes croissant rolls for all the family get-togethers. And it's one of those things. When she passes, that's gonna be rough, because literally an entire lifetime of every major holidays, those homemade rolls and stuff like that. That's her thing, and she still does them. And it's like she's kind of showing me how to make them, and I can kind of sort of make them, but they're not the thing. So it's like, so we're always around food. We're always encouraged to cook. We're always making stuff like that. And then food was like a big thing, you know, and when you're at a PK, preacher's kid, you're constantly having people over at the house. You're constantly entertaining people. You're constantly serving people.
Yeah.
And there's always good food. And there's, you know, after church, you go out to eat. You know, there's like a lot of that kind of culture there. So I think there's a real, looking back at it now, is a real familiarity with food. And then you go to Detroit, and it's like ethnic everywhere.
Yeah.
And I live in Redford, which is all Greeks, Italians, and Polish people. So unbelievable food.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's like the top three, I think.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Little diners.
Yeah.
And it's kind of what we have. I mean, literally, that's transplanting that kind of a feel. It's little mom and pops, little family owned, good prices. You're going to get homemade food. It's going to be great, you know. And just, you go all around the city of Detroit in just a few minutes in the evening, and you go to Mexican town, or the Italian food is everywhere. And now, of course, there's tons of Arabic, Muslim food. So always ate well, dirt cheap, really got a loving for that. Then I got my teaching job out of Napoleon. Jackson's got some stuff. There's a Polish community here, which is kind of nice. But boy, there's not many Italians.
No.
So it was rough. And then back in the day, there weren't many Mexicans. It's a growing population now, but in '90 it was pretty small. So I was really missing the food.
Yeah.
So I literally went back home, and all my friends, I'd have their moms and grandmas show me how to make the Italian food. So that's how I learned how to make. But I had a background with cooking, so it came. So then I just started cooking for my family, and then the next thing you know, I tell kids in school at Napoleon about it, and like, man, that sounds really good. I said, why don't you come over to the house? I'm used to having people over. Yeah. To go. And then I don't know if I'm going too far.
No,
okay,
you're
all right.
good.
So I don't want to overstep, but kind of dragging into the
No,
present.
you're fine. One thing that I say, I will interject. This is your guys' episode.
Okay.
So I'm just here to draw it out.
I don't want to feel like I'm hogging the mic.
No,
here,
it's all you guys, really.
So basically what happens is, you know, around 1999, it's just this weird life. You just absolutely can't possibly understand how your life is going to turn out, you know, and just little weird things that push you this way and that way. And you look back at it, you see the significance of it, but in the moment you're like, whatever.
Yeah.
But so I'm passionate about history, passionate about teaching. That's a whole different side of the story. We're on food right now, but I saw this movie with Edward J. Olmos, where he's like in inner city Los Angeles, and he's teaching AP classes to this inner city ghetto school, and he's like this really rigid teacher with like gangbangers and stuff like that. And it's a true story. And he gets these kids to pass the AP test, and they're getting college credit. These are kids who weren't even scheduled to finish high school and stuff. It's a great story. And one of the things in there was he forced, because these kids did come from such a deficit, he required they had to stay after school for like an hour or two every day to study. And they would come to his house and all this kind of stuff. And they were making Mexican food because his wife would make Mexican food for the kids. So I saw that. So here's weird little vibes. So this is like early 90s. I was on a plane flying back from some education thing I was in. And I saw that film. I was like, wow. And I'd always heard about the AP program, and I was very academically oriented. As a kid back to Napoleon, it's like, we got to have AP classes. Yeah. So we get the AP classes started, do all the stuff for that. And the principal's like, well, if you don't get 25 kids to sign up, we can't run the class. It's a small school. You get 100 kids in a graduating class. Getting 25 kids to suffer through an AP class is like, no way. So I started bribing the kids. I'd be like, well, hey, I know this is intimidating or whatever else. If you sign up for the class, every 2 weeks is a test. You can come to my house. We'll study. You know, I'll cook you this food. Nice. And I always would get 25 kids to sign up. Awesome. A good chunk of them could care less about the class, but they wanted the food.
Yeah.
So,
Food is a great motivator.
So I had like this menu of like, I don't know, 30, 40 items. And every 2 weeks they'd vote on which one they wanted. We'd cross that off, and they'd kind of work their way through the menu. But the kids thought it was the coolest thing in the world. It became like a thing, you know. So for like 20 years, really, you know, cooking for the kids. And in the process, I'm inadvertently kind of getting used to cooking for big groups and big parties, and perfecting the recipes and all this kind of stuff. And I had no intention of starting a restaurant. I mean, I talk in general, but I'm not thinking, hey, I'm going to start Booher's Market on it. But then as I get close to the end of my career, I'm only in my 50s, like, well, what am I going to do? So I've always been a hard worker. I was like, I work for myself. I know how to make food. And there's other parts of the story. I don't know how far you want me to go with all this.
No, that's, hey, as long as you want, and I'll go back if I got questions.
Well, this is what I'm trying to say. I like, this is it. It's just, there's so many things like, oh my gosh, it's like you start realizing, and all of them are important, you know? So, like 2010, it's the recession.
Yeah.
The roof is bad on my house. I got to get a roof. I don't have money for shingles. My neighbor owns the Mowers Car Wash on US 12. He's like, hey, you could set up a little food thing there. So I had this taco recipe. It was a killer taco recipe, and take chuck roast and cook it down with jalapenos, whatever else. And so I would every day, every night, I'd cook this chuck roast. I'm shredding the meat. I'm, cooling it, all that stuff. I'm then packing it on a trailer with refrigerator and some grills, and run up the US 12, setting up the tent, setting up all the stuff, doing lunch service, selling tacos, and then shut down at 2, run over, pick up more product, run back to the house, cook the meat, shred it. Next morning, do the thing,
Yeah.
And I was able to do okay enough that, buy a bunch of shingles for the house, shingle the house. But the point being, if I'm not teaching and I'm, I might be able to start a restaurant. Might be something I realize I need brick and mortar. This food truck kind of thing is not, and killing myself.
Yeah.
So,
Man,
yeah.
dude, that's super cool. Okay, really. One question I do want to ask. Well, I'm going to have a lot more questions, but one question: you from Detroit to Jackson, what's a real coney dog?
We all know the answer to this. And I'm sorry, it's not Jackson.
Thank you. That's what it's not Jackson, man. That's not a real.
That was like a shocking thing, we got out here, and Jackson's a huge dog place. Oh my gosh, it's like Detroit's got Coney Islands everywhere, but Jackson's like on a whole other level. It's like for this, for the per capita. And everyone's like, oh, you gotta get a call. Okay. So because people quickly find out I like food. So of course they're so proud, oh, you gotta go. So we go there, and the price is great, and we get the Coney dog. I'm like, where's the chili?
Yeah,
There's a bunch of ground up meat on here. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
I'm born and raised here. That's my company.
I mean,
Personal.
growing up in a town with all the Greeks, it's chili. It's, bean base and meat chili that you have on the dog, and you got tons of onions and, mustard, and then, Lafayette, Coney Island. That's kind of the standard around the whole city. And it was, I don't dislike the Jackson Coneys. It just doesn't seem like.
I get pickles on mine.
See, I thought a Jackson Coney was just a loose Coney, but now I know what a loose Coney is, so that's not right either. But I'm like just ground beef on a hot dog.
And she doesn't do hot dogs. She's like, man, I really want a loose Coney. I was like, oh, I got you. And I took her, and she's like, what is this?
Yeah. Well, in Detroit, they do the loose burgers, so they don't even have the hot dog in it. It's just a bunch of chopped up meat. That's a big thing out there too. But yeah, I don't know. It's cool.
Yeah.
I'll eat them. I'm not upset eating them. I'll be honest, if I want a real Coney, I'll go get to Detroit.
Going to Detroit. Well, man, that's awesome. So I guess I'm going to just try to bounce back and forth.
Sure.
But I did want to ask, are you co-owners? Do you just help him? You're the owner? I just want
The dynamic.
the dynamic.
He's the owner.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. You just help him a
Yeah.
lot. Awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, no, that's still cool, man.
Well,
That's really
And
cool.
Sandy is wife too.
Awesome.
Yeah, and he's a part owner too, though. So
Okay.
I made him. And there's a challenge there because I got 5 kids. So
Understood. No, that's
So
absolutely fine.
we're trying to arrange it that there'll be a transition. So he's already a part owner, but
I got you.
more of an owner as I step back and he takes over, and then trying to work out a situation where it's fair to all the kids.
Oh, no, well, most definitely. I mean, that's not your legacy and stuff. That was just a question, so I know how to ask what I want to ask.
No, you're fine.
I
But
don't want to overstep or step on toes or
yeah,
anything.
no. But I'm very aware that at my age, obviously. So, and I'm all about family anyway. That's why I want to start a family business. So, providing a space with the idea that it can have a generational impact was always the goal.
Yeah.
So I really don't. I might be the owner, but I don't. Like, I have all the responsibilities of the owner, but I don't have this proprietary, you're not a part of this feeling about it at all.
Right, like the
You know,
ownership feeling.
Yeah, the ownership is, for me, the feeling is more like it's everybody, rolling this together,
I obsess over Gordon Ramsay, and no, really, and I'm not a foodie, but his level of expectation in a good way. I feel like that bleeds on every aspect of your life. So I'm obsessed with Gordon Ramsay, and one thing he said, like an owner getting older, you have to realize you're going to step down. And it's like it seems like you already had the hardest part out of the way.
Well,
Like the hardest part to be, it seems like you already got that out of the way. So.
You start a restaurant in your 50s, you better have that mentality, something, right? You'd be in trouble if you're not.
So have you always been passionate about food? Like you said you were a waiter before, and then say you met your wife.
Yeah, I just always worked in restaurants growing up. So I pretty much worked in restaurants my whole life. And I usually was waiting tables, but now I kind of cook more. So that's where I got into food, because we opened up this restaurant. So at my last job, I was one of the managers there. So you cook, you do a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
You like run some food, you make some food.
Mhm.
We don't really do it for your job.
Yep.
And then when we opened up, I just kind of expected, I was like, well, I'll probably just kind of help out with a little bit of everything. But almost instantaneously, we just needed to cook food. So I haven't really done much beyond that since then.
Hey.
So I love it. I love it with so much more. I got out of the restaurant or the serving game. I don't know what year it was. It was like 2019 or something like that. I switched to the kitchen. I started washing dishes, and I did like managing stuff. So never really was a cook for my job. But
How did COVID affect you guys in like the service industry? Because you said you were doing stuff out of your house with the pies and things, and then you said you were serving, but you got out right before that. So did it affect the whole everything both of you had going on?
it was a challenge. We didn't. I was working at Aka Sushi in town when COVID dropped. We didn't close. We stayed open. The dine-in thing was crazy, and we just followed the guidelines as best we could and did a lot of takeouts. Just riding those waves. Now that I think about the rules and all the things they put on restaurants, I can't even remember. It would change on an almost weekly basis. It was really tough.
Wow.
So they made it through, and a lot of people didn't. So I worked the entire time. There was no lockdown for me or nothing like that. So, and when the restaurant started, Booher's, it was just kind of like right towards kind of the end of all.
Okay.
We pretty much didn't really have to worry about it.
Right on.
Yeah, that was a genesis for us because I already bought the property and sold my other house. And again, my gosh, the story it would just be crazy. But I knew I was going to start. Okay, I need to probably start a restaurant. I should start looking at properties. I kind of wanted to have, like I said, the immigrant concept. So I wanted to have a property where I'd have the restaurant, but I have an attached apartment or something where I could live there and pay one rent and just as cheap as possible as far as my living arrangements and stuff like that. And try to make it so I didn't put a lot of pressure on the restaurant where it'd have to be profitable just to survive or pay my bills. I wanted to have a setup where I'm living and paying my bills, and then the restaurant can just keep growing until it reaches profitability on its own. And
Smart. That's really smart.
2019, I'm thinking, well, I'm at 20. I'm going to be at 29 years. The next year will be 30 years teaching. That's when you reach your retirement. My youngest son is junior in high school. I might teach till I'm 32 years, but then I have to. And this is the problem, I'll be 52 when I hit 30 years, and it's like, if you're going to go at that age, you better go. Like you can't, like it. So I kind of did, not wait too long.
Yeah.
So, the house we had, there's a family who lived there. She'd always comment how she always wanted to move back there, blah, blah, blah. And so I told her son who lived right next door, is like, hey, we're probably selling in a couple of years, we're thinking about it. He went and told his mom, and he's like, hey, they're thinking about selling. She's like, can I see the house? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll buy it. What do you want? So I'm like, this should probably be fair, but need some work. Don't do any work. I'll buy it just the way it is.
Wow.
And that was it. So I was like, I guess we're moving.
Yeah.
So then I'm like scrambling. Like, I got to find some properties on M50. I want to stay in Napoleon,
So you had
stay
a
to the
specific
community.
area.
Well, I want to stay in the community because everyone there knew I cooked food, and I'd had a lot of connections with people. It's like it made sense, like to start your business in the community you've been in. So, and I like the town and everything else. So Now we're scrambling. In 2019, the housing market's crazy. So there were some properties where you could like have a place to live and have a house. And just in the few weeks of that transition, they're all gone except for this one where we're at now. And the guy had died a couple of years earlier and had been sitting empty for a while, and no one was buying it. I'm not quite sure what the deal is. I don't know if I couldn't even find the realtor who was selling it. So maybe that was the reason why I ended up calling a number that was there, but it ended up being the people who had listed it earlier and just crazy stuff. So long story short, we get the property. There's all kinds of little snafus with that and all. So then in 2019 through 2020, I'm still teaching my 30th year at Napoleon. And so now I'm just living there and I'm still doing all the AP stuff and stuff, just at a different location. And then that spring COVID hits. And, it's just crazy. That's the most insane thing I think we've gone through. And it's one of the top three, I guess I'd say.
I would say for our generation, for sure.
9/11 really hit there. There's a few things that I'm thinking about it, but there's not too many things that would top how insane. And we basically lived under a dictatorship for a few months, so it's kind of nuts. So, but everyone's scared and whatever. So that had a huge impact on the restaurant because, we get to that spring and they shut school down, and there was an attached greenhouse with the flowers, and all the locals are like, man, you got to do the greenhouse. You got to do the flowers and stuff like that. Like, I don't know anybody. We'll help you. We'll help her. That's like a thing in the community. You got to do that stuff. So, okay. So turns out the bus driver at the school, she actually is a family member of the original family who had the market there back in the day. And she knew the flower vendors. So she gets the phone number and we talk to these people. Yeah, sure. We'll help you out. And so in the middle of COVID, schools closed. We're doing online learning, but I'm at the house the whole time. So we did flowers that spring. It just so happens that was like record flower sales because nobody could leave their homes. So everyone was gardening. Yeah. So we literally were selling out of flowers the whole time, which helped provide money to start the business. Yeah. And I was like, man, it's a short season, but I was like, man, this is kind of a thing. So it gave me some confidence maybe we could do something. Yeah. And then they get to the end of the school year, and at the time, all the schools thought they're getting all their funding cut, so they're scared. So Napoleon's talking layoffs, like a lot of layoffs, which at 30 years, I'm not going to get laid off. But my second year in teaching, Jackson Public's going through tons of layoffs right now. Yeah. And Napoleon had like a really tight budget my second year teaching, and I had two little boys. We just bought a house, and like, I think we're going to have to lay you off. You can't keep your job. And I wouldn't be living here. All this would be happening. But one of the math teachers, she really liked me, and she was at 30 years, and she took retirement and went to Jackson College to teach math and saved my job. Okay. Never forgot that. Wow. So I'm looking at that, and they just hired a bunch of young teachers and stuff. And it's like, I'm at 30 years, I can retire. Yeah. My plan was to wait another year or two, but
it's like paying it forward, right?
Yeah, if they had gone through with it, they would have been laying off some young kid who just had a young family, and I literally have no intention of staying more than a year or two. I was like, man, that's just dirty pool. So it's terrifying because you're quitting your full-time job. You're at the top of the pay scale. I'm very well set there. There's no fear of me. I could probably teach another 10 years if I wanted to. Mm-hmm. So actually making the decision to do all this, and you're putting everything out there, and you kind of know what you're doing, but you actually know nothing about what you're doing. Yeah. It's pretty scary. So I just decided to jump and go for it. So COVID was the thing. That started it, and that started the process. And it took a couple of years to get the whole thing up and going and stuff. But oh my goodness, yeah, it was. And then COVID's a terrible time to start a restaurant because they're closing restaurants everywhere. Right? Yeah. So I'm like, this is, I don't know. I mean, is this, my wife's losing her mind. Yeah. She's pretty certain. She's seeing restaurants closing everywhere. It's like, are you crazy? Right. So, but the thing is, I'm on these auction sites, like they're getting all this equipment. It's very expensive, right? Mm-hmm. Well, there's restaurants closing, multiple restaurants every week. So I go on these auction sites. I mean, whole restaurants for sale. And there's like dozens of them. So you go on these auction sites and they're selling off almost brand new equipment in a lot of cases, or things that's in good shape. Yeah. But there's so many restaurants up for auction. Everything's going for cheap. Mm-hmm. It's like we're getting all this restaurant equipment for like nothing because it's COVID. So it's kind of benefiting me in that way. It wasn't like it was planned. It just kind of
serendipity
was what it was,
Hey, Jesus is our Lord and Savior.
Yeah.
So that's a God moment.
Yeah,
that's a God moment. That's wow.
Yeah, and there's a lot in there because I'm certainly a person of faith. I'm not just a preacher's kid. I'm all in.
Right.
And there was an awful lot of prayer and a lot of confirmations that this was for real.
Mhm.
So literally, this whole process has been nothing but that, you know. And every time I'm discouraged or feel like, you know, I don't know where it's going to go, it works out.
Yeah.
You know, so you really, you know, my dad used to always say, there's a song that we'd sing of, "He's all I need."
Yeah.
Jesus is all I need. And we sing a song. And he used to always say, you know, you sing that song, "He's all you need," but you don't realize that till you realize he's all you have.
Yeah.
So jumping out in there was, whew.
Yeah.
I mean, he's all I need. There's a lot of times because really, looking back, I didn't have the money to start a business, and I had saved up some money and I'd make a little money at the fire. But looking back at it now, it's like any financial advisor say, "You're a retard.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
You're an idiot. This will fail. This business will fail." And of course, you look at restaurants, 60% fail in the first year. You know?
Yeah.
So it's like crazy. So I can't get funding for the restaurant. It's, you know, I'm going to banks and I got my plan. You know, I had the pie sales. So I had some sales. I got a flower shop, makes this much money. I got some pie sales, makes this money.
Yeah.
Probably this. And I was being very, very conservative with my Excel spreadsheets and stuff. And the banks are just like, "You've been open less than 3 years," which is usually the minimum to get any kind of loan.
Yeah.
They're trying to start a restaurant in COVID. Restaurants are closing everywhere. They're like, no. So I got a tie-in with Consumers Credit Union back when it was still Consumers.
Yeah.
And the kid there, the agent, had worked in restaurants, believed in restaurants, saw my idea. We're going to make homemade food. He thought it was super cool. He's pushing for me. Can't get any approval from the higher-ups because financially it makes no sense.
Yeah.
So I was doing the pies, and we just got a garage there where the restaurant's going to be. I says, "Well, you know, we're emailing each other back and forth. We're just data points on a sheet on it. Maybe we could just talk. You know, I could show you what I'm going to do, and you could see what possibilities there are.
Yeah.
And I'll make you some pie." So they came down, and I made them an apple pie and a chocolate cream pie. And I made sure the apple pie was hot, you know, when they came in. So I showed them the whole thing. You know, they could see I didn't have any tracks in my arm. Or,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
not saying, well, you know,
Yeah.
people are weird.
No, I get it.
So,
I get it for sure.
you know, they could see I'm like a normal dude, and
Yep.
I'm not like some crazy person asking for money. And, you know, I gave them the pie, and they're eating the pie. They're obviously liking the pie, so they're pretty cool with that. And then I'm like, you know, I'm not allowed to make cream pies under the cottage law. Under the cottage law, you can only do fruit pies. You can only do so much a year. I says, if you could invest with me and let me get a commercial kitchen, I can make dairy-based pies like cream pie. This is an example of what could happen if you guys can go with me.
Yeah.
And I gave them the chocolate pie. And they're driving back to their office. And before they even got back to their office, they called me and said, "Hey, we're going to approve the loan for you." It's just a great story.
That's all you need is one
Yeah.
person to believe
Yeah.
in you. That's all you
Yeah.
need is one.
So, I mean, but if I hadn't have stepped out and actually got them, it probably would have never happened.
Yeah.
So was COVID a big deal? Yeah, it was a big deal. You know, and by the time we opened, all this COVID stuff was lifting. So, I mean, literally, just as we're coming open, this stuff is coming up so people can come out. People desperately want to go out
Yeah.
because they're tired of COVID. So, I mean, it was some trouble, but it was at the end of the day, it wasn't bad, I guess.
I feel like COVID was a revival period for
For
a
some
lot
people,
of
yeah.
people. Like it was terrible, it was awful. We all had to go through it, but like so much good came out of it.
Yeah.
There was two things I wanted to touch base on real quick before I ask you the start of your story. One, I don't remember what you said, but it's in Matthew. I don't know, maybe chapter 4. But the bird wakes up every day and he does not worry about where he's going to get the worm.
Yeah.
And the wolf, when winter comes, is not worried about his coat. And that,
Yeah.
what you said just made me think of that.
Yeah.
And then second thing, what you got in favorite pies?
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta ask.
Yeah.
I like blueberry.
Blueberry.
It depends on what mood I'm in.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, basically everything on the menu is things I like eating. That's how I kind of set it
Fair
up. So, yeah. I guess there's even more things if I had the time to make all the food, I'd
Yeah.
definitely put on there. But
Okay.
sometimes it's chocolate cream, sometimes cherry I guess the most.
Okay.
That's what I.
Do you do cheddar on apple? Do you do cheddar on
It's
apple?
like the cheddar on apple.
Yeah, I do.
Some people ask for that.
I'm
Yeah.
not a fan.
Some people do.
Okay. I've never heard of that until I did, and now I can't unhear it. That's not me.
It's a rare thing in Michigan. We've had a couple people do it.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I'm partial to key lime.
Yeah.
That's a good one,
Yeah. Okay. Well, so Do you want to run through the beginning of your story, if you don't mind?
Oh yeah, not at
Awesome,
all.
awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I'm from Ypsilanti. My folks they just kind of had part-time jobs. They didn't really go to college or anything like that. They met at a bakery, and I grew up there until I was about 10. My home life was pretty chaotic, honestly. There was a lot of just wild stuff happening.
Yeah.
Just, same old story. My dad had a lot of, he was schizophrenic, I'm pretty sure. I can't remember exactly. I was too young. I didn't really honestly care. He just had trouble. He had a hard time just kind of doing just about anything.
Understood.
So from a pretty early age, things were just kind of stable. My mom is just one of the most stable, mellow people. I can't imagine anybody. She's just calm. She just doesn't get too rocked by anything. So I had my mother, and my dad had a lot of really great qualities. He got me into so many things and taught me a million things, but he just had a hard time, man. And I had a hard time too because of it. There was just abuse in the home. No, this kind of unpredictable thing with somebody who has mental health issues. It was tough. So I had a good childhood though. I mean, when you're a kid, you don't really know a lot, so you can't really process it. It comes up later usually. So I remember having fun, as a kid. I loved being a kid in like the 90s and like I just it was a good time to be a kid. So I had good friends. I did okay in school. Everything was pretty normal, but this thing was going on the side the entire time. And yeah, so I moved to this area when I was like 10 and graduated from Springport. And then I just got into playing music. I got into music. I went to church. My mom would take us to church, and I got hooked up at a church in Albion. That's where we grew up. I went to Springport, but I lived in Albion. So went to a church in Albion, and the pastor just offering, hey, any kids want to learn how to play? He played guitar. He did the worship and he preached. So I was like the only kid who was like, yeah, can I play drums? Yeah. I played in a band, and he's like, he doesn't really know how to play, but he gave me some sticks. He played the beat that he knows how to play, and that got me kind of like into that. So I played at church, and I got really into music. I was in a band with my high school buddies. Cool. And, that was like a big thing. So that kind of took me from just being 20 and just playing in a band, just being a kind of just dicking around basically with my buddies, working in restaurants. And I just kind of I just kind of lived a life, just pooped away my 20s, just working in restaurants, having fun, too much fun. I had a lot of issues with drinking and drugs and everything. I went through the whole thing, man. I crashed in a wall many times. So I met Anna, when I was about 29, and she was younger. She was 22, and she had just she grew up in a stable home. We got along so good, but I was going through so much stuff, and I was just a hot mess, But we were friends. We cared about each other. There was mutual respect on some some like base things. So we had this kind of relationship that had a lot of problems built in as something from her perspective and from my perspective. It was ill-advised and really stupid. But we were both, she got me coming to church, and that did nothing for me for years. I did it for her, and eventually it started to, I wasn't antagonistic to faith really. When I was maybe before I met Anna, I went through that whole thing. That was like 2009. I don't know if you guys know.
Oh, I know.
That's the religions, all this stuff. When you're a rebellious kid, you go through this little phase. I didn't really sink in too far. By the time I met Anna, I understood why people wanted to have faith in their life. I respected that, but I didn't have it really for myself in any meaningful way. So I was still doing all the stuff that I was always doing, and then we were going to get engaged. We were talking about either getting engaged or not type of thing. So we started going to premarital counseling, and that's when kind of like things started to change a little bit. Gosh, I'm just having a brain fart just from talking. His name will come to me in a second. Steve Garrison.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a guy. I think he works at Jackson Nazareth now or something like that. He's a pastor, but he's a Christian counselor. So we're going to premarital together, and I'm just all this stuff from my childhood's coming up. All this stuff we're talking about, we're going there. I'm not sober, this and that, And I mean, it took us to the very, very brink of breaking up, staying together type of thing. The little kind of God moment or one of the most special days of my life was a terrible day. Anna slept in or something. We were supposed to go to premarital counseling in the morning. And Anna was like my little shield. She was I kind of used her in a way, I guess. If she was there, I felt better. And if she wasn't coming, I was about to call this guy and cancel because I wanted to get out of this stuff. I was running away. Mm-hmm. And I called Steve and I'm like, Anna isn't here. I don't know if I'm going to be able to come. He said, just come.
Yeah. Just
come. And I'm like, I didn't want to. Yeah. And something about that day, it was just a crazy time because, you said you live a life of faith, and I had a hard time growing up. There's this big old thing that I would hide anything that happened to me as a kid. I didn't tell people what happened in my house. I was ashamed of it. I was embarrassed by it. You always want to be who you're not. You know?
Yeah.
So I minimized it in a way that I didn't really know. This is what I did.
Yeah.
So all these things are coming up, and I always thought that maybe I was cool with my dad. He was still alive at the time.
Yeah.
Anyways, my whole thing with God happened was talking about my dad. I started to realize that forgiveness is this, when you put that above you, when you take yourself out of it, it opens up a lot of things. And the moment that I accepted salvation was one of the moments where I realized that it's not dependent on my ability or understanding of forgiveness. It's something that you don't understand. Yep. And all of a sudden, growing up, going to churches and stuff, I didn't really know that. I didn't understand that for myself. It took a long time to really, really have that sink in. So, and even the time when I'm trying to remember if my dad was dead or not. He was doing really, really well for a while. We were starting to I didn't talk to my dad for years in my 20s. There's an incident that happened at the house. I didn't see him from 16 till maybe I was 23. I don't know, something like that. It was a long time I didn't see him. I was moving around. I was playing music, having fun. Didn't talk to him. And we kind of connected again over time. And Anna, me and Anna were hanging out with him and this and that. And he was doing better with his mental health. Then all of a sudden he stopped taking his medicine, and I just knew something was up. And he had a hard time with boundaries with my brother's special needs. He's autistic, and we're going through premarital. So we're talking about what's going to happen with my brother when my parents pass. We need to sort these things out before we get married. We want to talk about it because what's going to happen? Somebody's going to have to take care of it.
Yeah.
So we had this conversation. I'm kind of rambling. I'm trying to double back to where that day. But so I had this conversation. We all sat down and we're just talking about our future with my brother. We're going to have to figure something out because I don't think he can live in our house. I don't know. We'll have to figure this out. Mm-hmm. Saying that, kind of putting a boundary down, he had a hard time with that at the time. We didn't talk. He wouldn't talk, and he was something was wrong. Yeah. And we're going to premarital counseling about all this. It comes up. Well, you might have to set a boundary. He doesn't want to talk to you. Let it happen. You can't. You didn't do anything wrong in that situation. So we weren't talking for a hot minute. And one day I go out to my car, and there's this note on my car, and it was just him telling me off. Basically, it was my dad had really great handwriting, but it was all shaky. It was weird.
Yeah.
My poor dad. Yeah. And then he died. He had a heart attack out in Poland. Yeah. And I'm still not sober at this point. That was the last day I drank. Was the night before I woke up, and that's a crappy day to have a hangover.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't really set out to do it. It just kind of happened, And then, you know, thinking about like when somebody dies and God, forgiveness, gosh, I have no idea who God can, or who the people God can forgive, you know? And that opened up forgiving my father, putting that to rest. It was a great time, even though it was horrible, you know, like these things started lining up, you know, all these things that you learn, being stuck in church, being forced to go, or I don't know, all those little silly things that you think are silly finally became real and meaningful and useful at the time. And it got me on my way, man. You know, that was the day my life started to kind of turn around, was once I just started to figure that out, you know? So that was now like about 4 years ago, you know? So it hasn't been easy, but it's been great. It's been great. I don't know, it's awesome. It was cool too, because this was, like I said before, is in October, and then we opened up the restaurant in January. So
Awesome.
it's kind of like a clean break from so much stuff, you know, like it's a new job. I had nothing wrong. I loved my old jobs. You know, I loved working in restaurants, and it was great too, because I got to start a new thing with my family. And the only thing I had to offer was the fact that I worked in restaurants. Like, so that's the reason why we worked together.
Awesome.
He knew how to cook. I knew how to work in restaurants, and that's pretty much it. Like, we had a couple of people, but it was like, you know, his sons and daughters, high school kids. None of us knew how to do anything for a long time. So it was a great little kind of like reset in life in a lot of ways. So then we got married, and I go to church, you know, with them. And I love my life. Yeah. So, and then food, I mean, how that ties into the restaurant, I don't know. I mean, yeah, just always working in restaurants, you just learn how to do stuff. I mean, I was a waiter a lot of times, so I kind of dealt with customers a lot, but you're always like, hey, make some whipped cream.
Yeah.
Oh, can you go out and bring this in? Can you do this? Little stuff, you know? So I'm comfortable doing almost anything, you know? So I just started cooking a lot once we started the restaurant, out of pure necessity. And now I kind of cook full time, you know? So it's been a lot of fun to learn how to cook. I mean, like talk about Gordon Ramsay.
Yeah.
The internet's a great time, like to I got cooking school on YouTube.
Yeah.
You know, I find people that I respect. I find points of view. I'm like, this guy knows what he's talking about. So then you learn little things, you know. So I learned how to cook from YouTube and just working in a restaurant at Booher.
Like
I got some go-tos. I think that I really appreciate, like, there's a guy named Kenji Lopez, you know, his sensibility with like whys. I like to know whys, because in a restaurant you can do anything, you know. I always thought that was cool when cooks would be like, put that in this pan and put it over there, and something happens, you know, they solve a problem instantly because of that like knowledge of knowing. So I like when somebody explains why. So Kenji's a big one. Gordon Ramsay's huge. David Chang was this guy who, when I'm like 18, you know, there's articles about Momofuku and this kind of like rock star Anthony Bourdain. You know, this is the golden age of like these kind of like pirates.
Yep.
So Matty Mathis, and they'll tell you why, you know. So I didn't go to cooking school, but I'm learning from like people all over the world how to cook chicken, burger, I don't know, whatever it is, you know.
Would you say there's a lot of like Asian influence? You said you worked at Aka.
Yeah.
I am a huge sushi fan.
Yeah.
Huge sushi fan.
Well, one thing that I do want to touch on, because I try to relate with every guest. And, man, I've had a life of faith. I don't ever want anybody to get misconstrued. I had a hard middle part. So it was like I lost my sister. It was not always a life of faith. We just refound faith.
Yeah.
But you said that one day you woke up and it was over, like you're drinking or whatnot, dude. It was it's about the same for me. I just woke up one day, and I don't even care if you still me. I just cannot drink. Some people are like, okay, I'm drinking too much. Don't drink as much. Like whatever. One day it just clicked for me. Like, and it was just like that. It was one day I was like, I can't do this no more.
It was a cool thing, because I had tried. I had been you know, being a drunk, being an alcoholic. You know, you sometimes you get forced to go to AA.
Yeah.
I was forced to go to AA.
Yeah.
So you know, I went and it was great. That was an amazing time in my life.
Yep.
Didn't stick.
Yeah.
It was the one thing that I couldn't do, and you know, the yoke is easy and the burden is light. I those two kind of thoughts of okay, so I pick up my cross and follow him, but the yoke is easy and the burden is light. That was kind of like at this time when all these things were kind of like come together. Something about that made it easy to not drink. I had the hardest time forever. Never. I was off and on, off and on, off and on. And something about that was a load, that was a grace that was given to me. Like I don't really worry about it too much. I don't think about it. I don't miss it. I definitely don't miss it. I probably think about it more than I miss it.
Yeah.
Well, I think the thing about forgiveness is people expect if they have to forgive somebody that they have to accept it, but that's not how it is, because you can forgive and then the acceptance comes later. Like you've learned like, oh, I've forgiven them or I've been forgiven. And it's like the weight is off because it's not a problem anymore. So eventually you do accept that it had happened. Doesn't mean you have to like it, but you have the acceptance after the forgiveness. So I think that's like the biggest thing for me is that I could never accept the things.
Yes.
And then when I finally dropped it, it was like this weight was lifted and I can talk about it. I don't feel the hard feelings that I felt about certain things because I've accepted that that's just part of my story, you know?
Yeah. Grace is a hard thing to swallow for someone's ego and this and that. And a lot of people don't think they need something, but we all need grace, even just going to work and doing this and that. So, it's a learning experience. And it's just funny because it's such a simple kind of truth, but actually, interacting with that and living your life that way, it's harder than it sounds.
Yeah.
It sounds simple, but it's not.
Yeah.
And it's especially growing up in hard situations or having hard things, like to actually, accept it, because we all do bad things that we're ashamed of, and so to actually kind of like know that it doesn't, you can let it go, and it actually is taken from you, and that's hard to do. You still got to fix things. There's consequences. The world keeps spinning, but yeah, something about that. That was a really good day, man. That was a great day.
Well, so Craig, getting back to let's say the first 2 years, man. How was it at Booher's? Like, how was the first year after COVID? You start getting people to come in. You said the first year was really profitable. Do you think it's because everybody knew that you started a restaurant and you had good dang food?
Well, it's profitable, not profitable.
Okay.
And I think a good way to look at life is, the rain's falling at the same time the sun is shining. If you're like rainbows, the same kind of deal. So much of it is how you react to this ongoing, really chaos.
Yeah.
And I think if we're all honest with ourselves, that's kind of life. We want a romanticized, I took these steps, the steps worked out, it's going great, life is good, a very surface, kind of a superficial thing. But the reality is it's never like that. There's just constantly, things, and I compare it to, I always tell people it's like the Deadliest Catch shows. I don't know if you've seen those crab fishing shows.
Yeah.
The guy's making money, the guy's pulling those crab pots, and when it's going really well, this, and you always hear Mike Rowan, this crab pot's worth $15,000. And they're pulling like 20 crab pots at $15,000 a crack.
Yeah.
I want to be a crab fisherman. It's all kinds of, but of course, what I love about the show is, they're making $15,000 a crab pot, and inevitably halfway through the line, they haven't even finished picking up all the crab pots, and then like some big hydraulic system breaks, and then you hear Mike go, this will cost him $150,000 to replace. That's it.
Yep.
So the business has been successful. It's not what people think business is. You're not Scrooge McDuck sitting on piles of cash. I'm realizing this now, what successful business means is that you have resources for the hydraulic system breaking. Just yesterday we got a big shocker. We had a thing happen. Some guys come in, they got to replace some stuff, and you kind of thought, oh, it's coming up. You save money if you're smart. They come in, they're giving you a bill with this. Is actually, in business terms, this isn't actually that big of a deal, but it's it's got 4 digits on it.
That's still quite a big number.
So let's say you're making $3.50 a burger. how many burgers do you have to sell to get to that number? Well, it's a lot of burgers, you know?
Yeah.
So, it's honestly, it's no different than your own personal life. And I think people sometimes mistake that their personal wage. If you're like I was a teacher, so I'm getting paid every 2 weeks. I'm a wage earner. You know, you have that kind of lifestyle.
Yep.
You kind of have a certain expectation what you're going to get paid every paycheck, and that's kind of it. You know, and then you have to make your life fit within that. Business is different because it's a variable, right? Like I don't know each week what the money is. Now, if you're successful, you get kind of predictable numbers. You kind of okay, we're going to at least do this. Like even if it's a crappy week, we're going to do this. But then you have other weeks like, oh my gosh, this is really good.
Yeah.
But what people don't realize with business is the variables are also a lot bigger on the other end. So when you're working, you know, your car breaks down, you get $1,000 car bill, or you get something like that, and you're always managing those kind of. If the business is just, it's like that Liz catch. It's just as much. So really, it's no different than if you're just a regular worker in the sense that you're managing your money. Can you manage your money wisely? Are you putting aside savings? If you have a good week, if you get overtime, are you blowing that money?
Yep.
Are you splurging and indulging yourself? Or are you being smart and saving it and preparing for the unexpected?
Yeah.
Because if you don't, that's why you see businesses close. You'll see, think of how many times you see a business, it's a successful business. You can see they're busy and they close.
Yeah.
Because something had COVID, something happened, they weren't ready for it, and they're gone.
Yeah.
And so I guess I said the first couple of years, the terrifying thing there is you have had zero time to build up any savings or any of that kind of stuff for those things. So you're really in a vulnerable spot. And you realize that's why so many people, well, one, a lot of businesses close because people don't know how to run a business, right?
Yeah.
They've got problems. They don't know how to manage people.
Yeah.
You got to learn all that stuff. Like the learning curve is unbelievable. But even if you get all that figured out, you know, some major thing hits and you're just done.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you can do about it. So we've been very blessed. You know, we did not suffer too many dramatic things. But really the first 3 years, you know, I would joke with people, oh, the business is doing so good. You're really busy. And yeah, the bank's loving it.
Yeah.
I got to pay the guys back that I gave the pie to, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, and that's, and if you're managing your money, what's the first thing? You know, if you have a mortgage, if you have a debt, car bill, you know, pay the dang thing off. You know, and that's one of the things as a worker you realize, man, when I don't have many bills but just utilities and groceries, I can weather a lot of storms. But most people don't live that lifestyle. You know, let's go to Disneyland and blow $5,000. We're on a credit card.
Yeah.
We're making payments on it at 25% interest. So the $5,000 Disney vacation is actually an $8,000 Disney vacation. All right. Well, business are different, you know. So really, I mean, yeah, we're successful, and it was all going to pay the banks off. So I mean, just getting that down, you know, now, because really now we're at a point where, you know, we're very small. We don't have a lot of room. So now you kind of tap out. And, you know, the other thing is you realize you got to be flexible. Like it's so much not what I thought it would be.
Mhm.
I mean, so naive. I'm thinking it's a small place because one, that's all I could afford. But two, I'm thinking, you know, like you think of a vision. We're going to have one person at the cash register and one of us will be back there cooking and maybe a third person. It'll just be like the 2 or 3 of us. And we'll be run some little shop and stuff like that. It's like, no. You know, it's like, and once you get into it, you see the expenses and stuff. I mean, yeah, you could do it with 2 or 3, maybe it'd be a very different model. But I mean, just by what we had built and the expense we have and stuff like that, it's like you realize that's not even possible because I got to sell X number of spaghettis and fettuccinis and hamburgers to just pay the overhead costs. There's built-in structural costs. You know, that consumer's bill is a pretty predictable bill every single month. Yeah. You got to make enough money to pay that bill, this bill, this bill, this bill. Well, 3 people can't generate that much revenue.
Yeah.
You got to be bigger.
Yeah.
You got to. So really, it's been a whole process. How can we stick another table in here? How can we blah, blah, blah. So now there's this realization of, you know, you're growing or dying, man. It's like everything else in your life. So it's good. But really the good is just preparation for the next step you got to take. And every step is terrifying. Every time you bring on more employees, it's a risk, you know. You don't know these people are going to work out. Some of them don't work out. If they don't work out, that's a threat to your business.
So you said your vision was like immigrant families, right? So it's funny because when we ate there, he was like, did these guys immigrate like with all the like little clippings and things? So where did you like draw the inspiration? Where did you get the stuff? Like you said, like Detroit, all the different styles of food, but like for the actual like decor, how did you draw that? Like, because I was wondering, I was curious about the little articles and things.
Yeah. Well, I have an interior art degree. No, I'm not.
I was reading them like the thing I was doing most of the time was reading all the little things on the walls and on the counter and.
Yeah, my artistic skills are zero. I don't have any of that. Fortunately, I have people in my life who do. My daughter Elizabeth is an unbelievable artist. So the painting, the picture on the inside of the restaurant, she did that freehand
Oh wow.
in like a day.
Wow.
Wow, you know.
Yeah.
And so I would say our family, you know, John's pretty talented. I think in general, the family in Devon's pretty. I don't even worry about it. I learned pretty early on in my teaching career, if someone can do something really well and you're not really good at it, it's okay to let them do that. You know, they're making you look good.
Yeah.
You know, here. But I did have some really strong feelings. I did want kind of a homey thing. We haven't even talked about the history stuff, but even bigger than food is history in my life. I can't even begin to tell you how history and the historical process is in everything in my brain. It affects how I look at the world, how I see my faith, how I see food, how I see everything. I mean, it is an internal part of me. So I felt like that should be in the restaurant, you know, because it's authentic, you know, and it's real. And I got into teaching because I'm insanely into history, and that was a God thing too. You know, there was a calling there. So I never felt called into ministry, but definitely called into teaching. And I see myself as a teacher always. You know, I'll always be a teacher. And if I reach a point where I'm not able to cook food 20 hours a day, I could see myself still doing history classes for people. Is that big of a deal? So that's where the clippings come from. So I've always thought it was strange that the town's called Napoleon, and there's literally nothing to Napoleon anywhere in the entire town. So part of it, I'm a very jokey, tongue-in-cheek kind of guy. I would always tease students, mess with them. So I kind of have that angle too. So I just kind of like the kind of kitschy, you know, I got Napoleon stuff all over the restaurant, historical things. And I kind of want to go with that. I think it kind of makes you unique and not some typical corporate layout. I don't want to even look that way, but I really do. I mean, even if on the smallest level, if it's somehow educating people in historical ideas, that's literally my entire life. Like that's all I'm about. So if you get me talking about that, oh my goodness, it's crazy. So there's such a passion there. So I've always been a person, I just throw myself into things I'm passionate about and care about. So it's always been kind of history and food, you know, close second. So it's got a little there.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
You're fine.
If we
No,
do,
I want to try it because this is perfect timing.
we just got the batteries for the camera, and apparently an hour and 2 minutes is the cap.
I got you. Do you feel like it's going okay for you?
Oh, this is great.
We're trying to figure out like because we give a gift card at the end of every episode, right? So I was like, if we did an intermission and introduced the gift card thing like as an intermission, we could switch batteries.
And that's why I said thank you guys for learning with us because this was perfect because we needed to know how long we had. And so this is perfect. Like this is seriously perfect.
Good.
Because even my best battery, it still only lasts an hour and a half.
Yeah.
I'm like, and no matter what I do, you can't plug the dang thing in. It's
Of course.
it's just well, it is weird. I can't plug it in, but I plug in this wire to make it work. And then
If we updated the camera, which they're expensive,
but I
so
can
it's hard
afford
to.
$900 for a dang camera. Dude.
Yeah.
That's expensive.
Yeah.
All right,
That should work.
give me 2 seconds. Let's see if it connects. But we can still hear us.
Yeah.
It's just that there's a big banner that says webcam utility. Yeah.
Do what you gotta do. There's no pressure.
Yeah. No, it says I got power.
Can you see me and everything?
To active movie shooting. Do you have to press that button?
No.
See, this is an area I would have zero competence or skill.
I
It's
don't
been
know. So, see, I flipped it off, flipped it on, and then it pops up like it normally does.
Am I talking too much?
No, seriously, this is great, you guys.
I don't know what it's a lot of.
No, it's good. I think
We're gonna have
it's a nice conversation.
No, that's the movie button.
It's a little easier than the
See
radio
what I'm
because
saying? It says that.
Yeah, you can actually talk a little bit. Not worry
Yeah.
about it.
So,
Wrap
it says
it
right
up.
there. Hit that. Okay.
There we go.
There we
Paper
go.
work.
Dude, awesome. Oh,
That
I
could
did
be-
turn off. Did it turn off?
I didn't even see it turn on. Let me back up it. Let me
Alright,
back up
give
it.
me I'm gonna go fucking shit this. 1 second.
Okay, active for shooting. Got it. Okay, I can see you guys. Let's see if this works. No. Well, that's okay. They can still hear us. I'm sorry that the thing went out.
Oh, no worries. It's
Learning
Let
curve.
him do his thing. Let him do his thing.
I happen to be the expert in the technical terms,
Yeah.
but I am no expert. So
It's I'm not a computer guy, and they get more complicated than when I used to be. It's 2004. I can't keep up.
it's the audio and the visual and
Yeah.
all of
And
that.
that's a whole different world.
So random questions. What is your favorite dish at a restaurant? Both of you.
Oh, on the menu, I would say like probably a chicken parmesan. That always goes down smooth for me.
Okay.
And then special, we're doing Korean tacos
Oh,
right
that's
now.
amazing.
That's probably my overall favorite thing.
So mine is like the pies, whatever mood I'm in.
Yeah.
I generally like variety, so I'm not typically into one thing at one particular time. Specials are nice. We generally will try them out before
Right.
we serve them. That's usually when I'll try those.
Are they working? Oh, okay, that's all right.
I actually struggle eating them when they're on the menu because I'm losing money.
Right.
You know, I get a little bit of Mr. Krabs at the Krusty Krab sometimes. Like, everybody, you know, so it's like I know we're going to sell out of it. And there's only so much of it, so I'm like, I could eat a burger and that. So I tend, and I'm not upset about that. It's all cool. So it kind of depends on my mood. I often find that I don't eat as much at the restaurant. You're just really busy, and a lot of times by the time you're done, the grill's closed up and everything's closed, and so I'm eating peanut butter crackers or whatever. So often convenience is a thing. So burgers or spaghetti or something like that. But I like it all. Feta cheese, great. And meatballs are fun, and I love Italian food, so I don't really have a problem. I guess now we've been open for a while. I guess we're often doing different things just because.
Variety.
It's different. I like variety. So yeah, just whatever I'm in the mood for. I don't feel like there's anything on the menu I'm like, ugh. Well, salads maybe. I like salad, but that's definitely not a go-to.
Rabbit food.
Yeah. We have salads because people want salads, and I mean, obviously you're a restaurant, you have salads, but I'm never like, man, I'm really craving a salad right now. I gotta have that. That's the one thing on the menu. I'm not like, it's gonna be meatball. It's gonna be it's gonna be French fries, something like that.
So before we ask,
Our wrap-up question.
yeah, I did have one other question. Before we ask our wrap-up questions, and I give you the gift card. And so you said, like getting into this, you started small and you didn't know where you were gonna go. I gotta ask, what's the next step? It seems like you guys are always packed. Just gonna try to get smaller tables, more chairs, expand. I mean, I know it's kind of early to ask that, but I'm just curious because every time I drive by, you guys are full. Like I never see that parking lot.
You guys ever think about like doing events or catering, anything of that nature?
Just curious.
Yeah, we do catering.
Oh,
We
wow.
don't really put it out there, but people call us all the time. We just did catering this morning, so
Oh,
we do weddings. I mean, we're always available to figure that stuff out. So, but we do want to actually. It's kind of hard just the way that, and Craig knows more about like construction and buildings than me, but we do want to add on a place where we can fit in some more tables. We're trying to maybe talk to somebody about figuring that out pretty soon. So if we can pack in another 40 people or so, or get up to I think 75 is kind of like the magic number that we're talking about. 75 seats, we can do what we do with not radically different setup and make some more money and give people a bigger space to a lot of times big tables and kind of sitting down and having maybe a meeting or something we kind of want to get into that too, where you have a spot where you can see big parties and that's kind of a need that the town has.
Yeah.
We could probably do by building on just a little addition or something
Yeah.
like that.
Just thought about like a patio area maybe.
Need to have it under a roof.
Yeah.
Right, like
Yeah.
a 3 or 4 seasons room.
Yeah, 4
Yeah.
seasons.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I don't ever want to talk bad about anybody else, but you guys to me are the only diner in the building. I would just say it like that. Like you guys are the only option. So no, seriously, no, you guys have good food. You guys are great, and I don't get only option makes it sound bad, but
Yeah.
compared to your competition, it's like I would go to you guys 10 out of 10 times, like every time. So it seems like you guys will be busy that way just because of that in itself.
Yeah.
And then I say that and it's funny because I say before my wrap up questions, and then I get more questions. So maybe another 10 minutes if you guys are okay with that. Okay. Did you like large parties? Because it seems like that's a hit or miss thing. Because it seems like some restaurants do not like large parties because it's 12 people. That's a lot of people to deal with at one time.
It's really hard to coordinate. As a server, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Usually like patios and having the table with the big table or whatever, you're kind of like you got the short end of the stick in that thing. So it's not easy, but it's super manageable. We could do something like that. And the good thing about large parties is that they are there or they're not. It's not like 3 tops, 2 tops. That's all day long. But every so often, we got 15 people. People call us about that. And for us, it's like, yeah, I guess we'll try.
Yeah,
It's hard. We can barely fit a 15 top in our restaurant. It's hard. So just to even have that as an option would be nice. So yeah.
Awesome, man. Yeah, and I just want to reiterate, I never talk bad about anybody.
Yeah.
I want to reiterate that. But yeah.
We cut a big old gash with the Coney Island thing, so the damage is already.
Yeah, no,
We can say whatever we
want.
Yeah, when you get into business, that's one of the things is these things will pop up. It's like, oh, and then you have to react to that. So, the realization is, like I said, we're going to be 2 or 3 of us just making X amount of food a day. No, that's not the way it's set up. And then the demand starts coming in we don't even push catering, but if we had any more catering than what we get, we'd be in trouble.
So,
I can't push catering. We don't have the facility to actually go out there and promote it and encourage it, which tells me is that, my gosh, think what you're missing as far as and then when people make special occasions at our place because they want to be there, but that's going to be a table of 8 to 10. And that people are skipping out on your place because they know you don't have the room for that. You realize you're literally just missing opportunities there.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean expansion's the answer. I think that's a plan. That's what we want to do. But like I said before, you're managing.
Yeah.
You make a bad decision. You make a bad decision as a family, and it hurts. Like you buy a bad washing machine, you're out $500 or whatever. It's bad. I'm not minimizing that. But what's scary about what we're doing is you make a bad decision at our level, and it's got 5, 6 digits on it.
Yeah.
There's no take backs, man. You're just up the creek. So trying to manage that part, that's like a big deal. Like, for example, why don't you expand right now? Why don't you expand? Well, have you seen the interest rates?
Yeah.
So if you watch, here's my history stuff, right?
Yeah.
So you watch the news, what's the front page on the financial thing all the time? It's like Trump's having this war with the Federal Reserve about interest rates because they're afraid of inflation, but the reality is higher interest rates slow down economic growth. Why? Because people like me are sitting there looking at the interest rate, and I just told you my first 3 years, I'm just handing those checks to the bank, paying them off. It's like, that'll kill you. If you're, oh yeah, you're packed. You got all these people in here. Yeah, and the mortgage payment on the loan I took out is so high, I'm still losing money. And that's what
for its principal.
Yeah, that's what put Red Lobster out of business.
Yeah.
They had a private equity firm buy them out. Nothing was wrong with their business model. They're selling tons of lobster and stuff like that. But a private equity firm cashed them out and took out a huge loan on the value of their property. So all these Red Lobsters went from just doing their normal business to, and at the end of the month, you're going to pay this huge bill to pay off this debt that these guys took on. So it's like expansion means taking on cost, not just debt, but also the cost of, you have to hire more workers. I'm not downplaying not doing this, but a lot of times people just think, kind of obviously naive, but you know, who runs a business, right? It's like, I'm like very aware of it now. Like, well, so I mean, the timing is so important. You got to make sure that you have the right time for the cost of the money, the time to save up your own cash reserves as much as you can, because you want to minimize that stuff. I mean, there's all these. How do I bring in new employees? I'm going to change the culture of the restaurant too. It's like that feeling you have won't be the same culture. How do I maintain the culture? There's going to be an intentional process that it still feels like a little diner with history clippings that you feel at home, because it won't be that same space. And you've seen places where it's this big, huge cavernous. It's like all that goes into that process. So I'm not in any way discouraging it or saying not to do it, but this is what you signed up for. It's like now the realization is like, ooh, it's a lot.
Well, man, one thing before our wrap up questions, and I don't know, you said something about history. How does it feel? So you said special occasions, and like you are in somebody's history book now. Like somebody after a wedding came to you, like that's got to make you feel pretty good, right?
Oh yeah,
okay.
Tons. And I get to see all my, not all, but can't even tell you how many times former students come in. I really feel bad. I missed one. Nick Rulowitz, he was the football coach at Western. He's going on second line. He posted a nice thing of him at the restaurant, and I guess before he moved to South Carolina, he wanted to stop by the restaurant. He must have missed me because he's got a face like, oh, man, it's like, you know, it almost makes you paranoid to be gone. Like, oh, I'm doing the podcast. Oh, I'm missing some student. Saturday's the day they come. It's like, so you got to really connect. But I'll tell you what, you know, and you realize this. One of the things that really struck me is not just being a teacher, but boy, so much of life is just the absolutely unimportant, mundane, stupid that you're not paying attention to, and that's it, you know. And I can't tell you how many times kids come back and they'll say stuff and you realize that there was an impact that was there. So you talk about parties. I mean, this highlights the previous life I had, you know, and the things that so many kids are like, oh, this was like a blah blah blah, and I'm like, that was nothing. It was literally, I can't even remember doing it. It was such a nothing. But for this kid, it was like, I call him a kid, they're like 50 years old now, you know. It was like boom, you know. And so it really kind of helps you to want to be careful, you know. And I think you just have to be aware that for good or bad, the things you're doing every day need to be as intentional as they can be. And I emphasize that because so much of our life is not that way. I mean, and it can't be. I mean, you could become pretty psychotic if every minute of the day, you know, and I'm not saying it's stressful. Yeah. It's a good thing. It's actually really cool. You feel good about stuff, but to be constantly aware and focused on I want to make, you're busy, man. I gotta make pasta. There's no pies in the case. I gotta get 20 pies out right now. So, I mean, the challenge is how can I stay as much in that moment and realize how important it is for people while I'm so busy, I don't have time to really. And I think it's not just being a business owner. I think being a teacher, being a parent, being a spouse, being
different hats, right?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. But they're all important. Like you think, you know, you talk about events that happen in your life, you know, and you know, and I see this more and more. And being a history guy, you think this way anyway. This is how you look at the world. When you're a history person, you're always looking at how events and how they affected things. So it has even a bigger impact. But like even when you raise your kids, you know, they get older as adults and like, all that time that you did this thing, and sometimes it's bad and they're sad about it. You're like, that? Yeah. And other times it's good and they're really glad that you did it. And you're like, that? You know, and the things I look back at that I thought were so important, instructing my kids, they're kind of like, man. You know, so you don't control that.
Oh, sorry. Have you ever read The Traveler's Gift?
I've heard it, but I haven't read it.
It is a fantastic book. But something you said about history, about how everything plays out. He says, he talks about how we beat Hitler in World War II, but how we actually didn't. It was Nicholas Chamberlain from the Civil War. He beat Hitler because, in theory, if he never jumped the wall, he wouldn't be United Nations. So and that's what I love about history. The United States beat Germany, but no, it was actually the one man in the Civil War that made it all possible. I think that's cool.
I don't know if you've seen the movie Sixth Sense.
Yeah.
So the kid sees dead people everywhere. That's what history is. You're just seeing, you know, when you're really into it, there's this realization every little thing is affecting it. And I read the paper and I see news on the internet and I'm like, okay, and you start. Your mind just goes that way. So like how I'm describing this restaurant thing, it just affects your thought process. I mean, what's history good for? This is what it's good for, because you're thinking all the time. You're thinking about all the pieces that you have to go in place. And even if you try to do your best, it's, Dwight Eisenhower on warfare, warfare requires, I'm paraphrasing that, but, it requires endless planning, and no plan survives first contact with the enemy. So you're constantly doing all this planning, and then it gets screwed up anyway. But without the planning, it wouldn't work at all.
And you have insane foresight too, right? Like you're like, okay, so plan goes well, these will happen. The plan doesn't go well, this will happen.
Yeah, and there are times it just all falls into place. We had the catering this morning; it was an easy one, but nothing went wrong. Everything's fine. And sometimes it goes that way. But without the planning, when the inevitable hydraulic system breaks down or whatever, now you're just up the creek. You have no way to manage it. So.
Hey, this has been a pleasure, you guys.
Thank
Really.
you.
So my wrap-up questions, I'll actually ask you both separate because I know it's going to be a different answer. What is your definition of success?
That's a good question. I think that if you, that's hard. I love having your family around you, whether it's your blood or not, having meaningful relationships, working on something that you care about. It doesn't have to be a job, but if you're kind of tending to something that's nice, and I think that just having a purpose is a big deal. I think that living a life with purpose and just having a life of faith too, meaning, I think that if you have some of those things, you're doing pretty good.
Right on.
I think.
Awesome. Craig, what is your definition of success?
It's just the pursuit of truth,
Okay.
if you know the truth, and it's going to set you free, right? So, you got to be true to yourself, and the reality of the material world we live in is it's all fake, it's all masks, it's all things that aren't true, and that's being thrown at us all the time, and we are a part of that. So, you're constantly reassessing and you got to be careful, because on some level, if it's going to set you free, you have to also be at peace with that too. That we're not perfect. You can't do everything right, and things definitely go wrong. And you need to accept that and own it on some level, but you can't live there. You have to be able to get back up and just keep moving. And so I think when you're focused on what's true, it helps to keep you from getting too far high or too far low. Like when thinking, the place is so great. It's like, no, tap that down, man. It's like, it's cool. And that's exactly what you work for. And that's what you want to hear. But you know what? It's not you. It is you doing it. That's just weird. It's like you can control the things you can control. You can't control things you can't control. And most of the stuff you can't control. So all I can do is do my best job and try to do everything I can, knowing I'm going to mess up sometimes. But all this other stuff, I can't control. And yet we're still getting to this point. So like if you like the restaurant and you're coming there, yep, I did this and this and this. And that's where your ego can go in a bad way. It's like, I'm so awesome. But it's like, guess what? There's a million things I can't control. I can't control
Second
Devin.
and third circle.
Yeah. I mean, like right now, I'm here talking to you, and the kids are around the restaurant right now. I'm putting it on them. And there's gonna be people coming in and out of there, and they're gonna come up with a certain experience. So I'm assuming it's gonna be like, man, this is a great place. And guess what? How much control did I have over that? Zero. I'm getting credit for it. And so it goes both ways. You know what I'm saying? It's like all you can do is be true to yourself and realize that you can impact what's happening in your life in real time, and obviously in your personal life a lot. But so much of how this is gonna play out for good or bad, it's not in your control.
Yeah, that's that third circle part, right? Because you can kind of influence second circle.
Yeah.
First circle's all you.
Yeah.
But second's like the people you have in your life and things like that. And third is like you just can't control third at all. That is nothing on you.
Yeah, if you can't give that to God, you're just going to drive yourself insane, And like I said, you're going to mess up, but you need to. But the point of pursuing that goal is that you got to build a correct course pretty quick. And just admit, it's not fun, but you gotta be able to reset and have that reset going all the time. I wish it could be perfect. It just doesn't. And when people get a bad experience, I feel so bad. I honestly, really, some people don't care, but I really am frustrated. But at the same time, I just can't beat myself up because I know that I'm making my best effort. Sometimes my best effort really is lousy.
Well, and no matter what, though, no matter what you do, you could lay gold. Somebody will always find a problem with something. I mean, unfortunately, that's the way it is. But it's like I've never had that experience.
Yeah,
So-
but that's what they control.
Yeah.
And they have and that's the thing. That's what they control. So they have a right to have that reaction.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd agree with them,
Yeah.
but okay. And I think, boy, especially running a restaurant, you see it so much. It's like people have so much of a focus on what they can't control and so little focus on what they can control.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you need to flip that script a little bit,
Awesome. That's my last wrap up question. I do want to reiterate, thank you guys for coming on, and you guys are going to kill your next interview. You guys killed this. No, this was exquisite.
great.
Really.
You always want to interview a teacher. They do nothing but talk all day. I'm not kidding.
My last question, I will ask you both individually. One word that describes from started to where you will end up, and then the catch is it has to be one word to describe the entire journey.
Okay, so one word to describe.
Like where you started to where you like project yourself ending.
Oh,
We've had water, we've had God, we've had fire. I mean, we've had
We've had stressful
Yeah.
love, like
Tubby.
Tubby.
I don't know. Did you get one yet?
I'm gonna be home.
home.
I'm gonna be home.
Okay.
That's a good one. I should see this.
Well, seriously, thank you guys for coming on. I did not know to get you both one, so I figured it's not much.
I'm closer to that answer than he is, though.
Oh,
No, I mean, you think about that. This is being history down. I'm not being morbid. It's like the realization. I feel a very strong. I gotta go. I gotta move fast.
Yeah.
I look at my mom. She's 82. She's awesome. She does cool stuff, but she can't do what she did 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm the same age she was 20 years ago. So it's like, well, it helps give you just an added,
Yeah.
not a negative way.
No, I see that.
Not like George Costanza. I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
There's
No.
more like the finality of that. It's like,
Yeah.
it's more like being a senior in high school and there's only 2 weeks left for graduation. I don't know if you know, seniors are always like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, it's all coming to an end. It's like, then it's like this realization, it's like, that's kind
I
of,
wish I would have known then what I know
Yeah,
now because
yeah.
it seems like it was yesterday, and two, I don't feel like I'm anywhere near who I was then.
So this week.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. So this week, I try to do local. I don't know if Ace owns them, but B&B Hardware. So I think just something small for you guys, $25 or whatever. Well,
That's nice.
oil for grease. I don't know. I figured you could get something from
They're
them.
good. They're good people.
Yeah, they were very nice. So that's it. So
Yeah.
thanks, guys.
Appreciate you for coming on.
Thank you both.
Really.
Thank
Yeah, no
you.
problem.
And then
One more thing that will last while we're signing off. We both sign our table.
Oh, of course.
all right,
That's
thanks
terrible
guys.
handwriting.
No.
Sorry about the technical difficulties.
Oh,
I always wave, even if the camera's not on. I don't know
Well,
what
do us a favor. Let us know how